If you have ADHD, there's a good chance you've been called lazy, unmotivated, or a shitty friend or partner. So let me start here. Your ADHD is not a character flaw. It's a neurobiological difference. It's a difference in the way that your brain prioritizes tasks and completes them. Those tasks that rely heavily on what we call executive functioning. Things like planning, starting a task, sticking with that task, managing emotions, and weighing the risk and rewards. In brain scans, we see that. For a lot of people with ADHD, the part of the brain that helps with executive functioning, the prefrontal cortex, follows a delayed developmental pattern. It tends to mature a few years later than it does for people without ADHD. See, this is the area of the brain that a lot of people talk about when they say your brain isn't fully developed until you're 25. This difference is so important in understanding ADHD because this area is what's involved in balancing risk and rewards, regulating emotions and arguments, thinking about long-term consequences, and organizing and following through on certain tasks. Imagine your prefrontal cortex as a conductor of an orchestra, right? In ADHD, all the instruments still work, but the conductor keeps getting distracted or skips part of the sheet music. So sometimes your life sounds like a beautiful symphony, and other times it's just loud and disorganized. Basically, all the things that people with ADHD get criticized for are the same things that the conductor is supposed to help you with. It doesn't just stop with the prefrontal cortex either. ADHD also shows differences in the brain's dopamine reward center. Imagine dopamine as basically one of those reward chemicals that help you keep motivated to stay on certain tasks. So if executive functions is like the conductor of the orchestra, dopamine is the applause from the audience. With ADHD, it's like the audience barely claps for slow, quiet songs like Paperwork or Doing the Dishes, but they go wild for fast, loud, engaging songs like video games, urgent deadlines, or deep diving into a new hobby. So of course your brain is going to keep wanting to play those songs instead. It's not that you don't care about the quiet ones, it's that your applause system is uneven. For neurotypical brains, something as small as reading one sentence can give you that little bit of a dopamine drip that helps you read the next sentence, the next page, chapter, and book. But for ADHD, that drip is weaker. So the brain is constantly hunting for something bigger, faster, hits of stimulation, a fly in the room, social media pings, or even just food. That makes it so difficult to stay on boring, low-stimulating tasks, even when you genuinely want to. And then you get blamed for it. Right? From a young age, kids with ADHD get corrected way more often than neurotypical kids. Stop fidgeting. Why can't you sit still? Why are you so careless? Over time, these comments become this kid's internal monologue. I always mess this up. I never finish anything. If I always fail, I must be a failure. So why even try? That's how ADHD becomes not just about brain structures and brain systems. It's about a shame loop that continuously feeds on itself. It becomes something we call a self-fulfilling prophecy. You start to believe, I'm the kind of person who always fails, so you stop trying. And that creates more examples of failure, which proves that belief right. And then over and over and over again. Imagine you study really hard for a test, harder than any test you've ever studied before. You find your perfect little zone where you can actually sit down and find yourself actually focusing for more than 10 minutes. And then the day of the test comes and you draw a blank. You get nervous, your anxiety starts to build from past tests that you fail, and now you're not able to recall the information that you really did study. So you get the test back, big old F with a big old try harder next time on it, and that confirms your belief that no matter how hard I study, I'm always going to be a failure. So why even try? But you don't have to keep feeding into this loop. My name is Mike Shahade, and welcome to your brain. Let's zoom out for a second, okay? I have a bit of a hot take, but bear with me for a minute. A big reason I feel that ADHD is seen as such a problem in today is not because of ADHD, but rather the society we live in. From an evolutionary angle, I can imagine how a lot of the traits we call ADHD could be very useful. A brain that notices every sound or movement, that sounds pretty good if you're a lookout at night. The ability to hyper-focus intentionally on something interesting, that's powerful if you're tracking animals, making tools, or solving new problems. In a small tribe, a high alert, novelty-seeking, fast-switching brain could be a huge asset. But modern life isn't built around those things. It's built around things like sitting still for hours, staring at a screen, following long, detailed instructions, and tolerating endless, low-stimulating tasks. In that context, ADHD becomes disabling, not because the person is broken, but because the environment is unforgiving. And the cost is real. People with ADHD, especially when it's undiagnosed and untreated, have a higher risk of substance use problems, more accidents and injuries, and a higher risk of dying young, often related to impulsive or risky situations. Part of the substance use story is simple. If someone discovers that a drink, weed, or another substance finally slows that racing brain and lets them focus and feel normal, of course they're going to be tempted, especially if they've never been offered an accurate diagnosis, good treatment, or proven tools before. A lot of people are scared of ADHD medications, especially stimulants, even though they've been the ones that have proven the most effective, and that fear makes sense in a world where ADHD has both been underdiagnosed and overdiagnosed at different times, and where stimulants can definitely be misused by people without ADHD. And we've seen this with large studies that show that people with ADHD, these stimulant medications improve symptoms, improve their day-to-day functioning, lower the risk of substance use problems when used properly, and reduce the risk of accidents and even early death. So yes, stimulants are powerful, and they are risky if you don't need them. But for many people with ADHD, they're not study drugs. They're life-changing medications that help their brain work a lot more like everyone else's. And that's really useful in a society not built for them. But let's look a little bit more on the micro lens, on how ADHD shows up in relationships. People with ADHD are often labeled as inconsiderate when they forget to do chores that they meant to do, uncaring when they don't text back after you haven't heard from them in a while, and even selfish when they seem wrapped up in whatever is right in front of them. Online, you might see people talk about ADHD object permanence. Basically, out of sight, out of mind is especially true for those with ADHD. And this all ties back to your prefrontal cortex and executive functioning. Another job of your prefrontal cortex is your working memory and attention regulation. Working memory, this is your brain's ability to hold on to something without needing a reminder. And attention regulation is that ability to keep something on that radar even when it's not right in front of you. So practically, it feels like this. If I don't see it, I forget it. If my friend isn't right in front of me, they don't pop into my head. Not because I don't care about them, but because your brain relies heavily on visual and sensory cues to keep things online. From the outside, that can look cold and avoidant. Inside, it's something more akin to, oh god, I forgot again. I feel awful. I don't even know how to explain this without sounding like an asshole. ADHD is lifelong, and it shows up in relationships, work, school, and everyday life. But lifelong is not the same as hopeless. You are not the constant corrections you got as a kid. You are not the teacher comments on a report card. You are not the lazy or inconsiderate labels people have put on you. You are someone whose brain works differently, who hasn't been given the education, tools, or compassion. And that's something we can work on. The good news is we don't have to guess what helps anymore. We have decades of research pointing us towards real supports. So let's get into a few. Firstly, movement. And the reason that this is such a big deal is that physical movement is a massive support for ADHD. Exercise that regularly engages your body, especially things involved in balance and coordination, is linked to better executive functioning. Things like impulse control, working memory, and flexible thinking, all these things get improved with physical movement and activating that cerebellum, the location in your brain that's responsible for balance and motor controls. Studies show that both a single workout and a regular movement over time can actually reduce ADHD symptoms and improve those executive functionings in kids, teens, and adults. So things like sports, dance, yoga, or a daily walk aren't extra credit. For ADHD brains, they're often part of a core toolkit. Second, accommodations and external systems. We do not live in a world designed for neurodivergent brains. So waiting around for a whole system to change is kind of a long-term plan. Instead, it's about asking, what would this task look like if it was designed for my brain? One big correction I want to offer people is that ADHD is often more of a performance problem than a knowledge problem. People usually know what to do. The struggle is doing it consistently in real time. So we need to stop trying to keep everything just in your head. This might look like external to-do lists, sticky notes where your eyes naturally go, whiteboards, visual schedules, a shared digital calendar. Design your environment to remind you. Keys always go in the same bowl after work. You put a tracker on your keys or your wallet if they vanish from that regular spot. You set alarms and reminders on your phone, not because you're dumb, but because you're building a second brain outside of your body. We also call things called dopamine devices on purpose. If a long conversation or readings are brutal, give your brain something small, controlled a source of stimulation, a fidget toy, doodling while listening, walking in your meeting, or just background music to help you stay focused. These are tools that you can take authority over. And when it's possible, you ask for formal accommodations at school or at work. This might look like extra time for certain tasks, a quiet workplace, written instructions instead of just verbal directions, or being a bit flexible when it comes to scheduling. Is the system perfect? No, not even close. But advocating for yourself starts to move you out of the I just suck at this and into I deserve a fair shot, and I'm allowed to work with my brain, not against it. People with ADHD often hear that they should just try harder. The solution is not to just try harder. They've been trying harder their entire life. The solution is to try smarter. Learn techniques, learn strategies that have been proven effective. Work with your brain instead of fighting against it. If this resonates with you, you're not alone. On this channel, we're going to keep unpacking how the brain works and how to build a life that actually fits you. I'm Mike, this is your brain, and I'm happy you're here.